Good morning, everybody. Another episode of the Keep Going podcast, Athletes Shining a Light on Mental Health. I am so excited on this Sunday morning. AG is in the building and we color coordinated. Look at that. What's up, man?
We did it on purpose, right, Pat?
I love it. I love it. Well, you look great. It's so great to have you here. And I'm sorry to take you away from your Sunday, obviously, with your family to spend some time with us. So I appreciate that.
It's all good. I'm so happy to be here and I get to listen in all the time. So I'm happy that I get to be a part of it as well and shine light on something really important.
Well, I love that. And we've had some awesome people from NCSA. And I have to ask, though, to start us off, like anytime I have a former Division One athlete on and a mom on, like two of my things where I look back and I go, wow, like those people wear capes. Talk about how you got to where you're at now. Just walk me through that.
Yeah. So I grew up playing at a really high level for soccer, but I also played a lot of different sports too. And I think that was different back in the day when I was
Right.
younger. I'm 39 now, but back in the day, I remember looking through like a recreation book for my city and being like, oh, I want to try softball. I want to try this. So I really played a ton of different sports. But really soccer was the one that I got elevated on. I found a lot of success with. I think I had more of a passion for it.
Right.
But ultimately, I got recruited to play at Central Michigan University. I was a goalkeeper.
Fire up, fire up. Okay. Yep.
Fire up chips, Pat.
You know it.
And actually, that was really the only school that recruited me. I look back on my recruiting journey, especially now with my job at NCSA, and it was pretty simple, just because it was the only school that really chose me, and I chose it, and I was like, I'll just go there. But it ended up being one of the best decisions in my life because that decision really parlayed my life into coaching and meeting my husband and having children and all that stuff. So I found some success at Central Michigan University. I had great teammates and a good couple different coaches. Actually,
Right.
had a coaching change when I was there, but just loved it. And I remember walking off the field and having a feeling of like, this is done. I took my gloves off and I was like, I'm happy that I'm done playing, but I want to still be around this. Like, I love this environment. I love the game. I love the student athlete experience. So I looked for a graduate assistant position and I found one at Western Illinois University, which is
Oh, yeah.
kind of in the middle of nowhere in
Good
Macomb.
old Macomb. Good old Macomb. Yep.
Oh
I
my
know the
gosh.
deal.
It made Mount Pleasant look big.
Oh, my
But
goodness.
but I went there and I got to coach for the first time at the Division One level, which was really exciting and certainly not a ton to do in Macomb, Illinois, but get my master's degree in coach. And
Oh,
from there,
yeah.
I just continued coaching at different universities. I was fortunate to meet my husband. I was coaching at Toledo when he was at Bowling Green, uh,
Mhm.
which was rival schools back in the day. Um,
Apparently not for you guys. Apparently not for
no,
you
it
guys.
turned out okay.
Yes, of course.
But we kind of coached together for a little bit, and then we were in a point in our lives where we weren't really sure where we wanted to land and live and raise our children and stuff like that. So we were trying out Winter Park, Florida. I started as a recruiting coach at NCSA, and now we're here 7 years and we love it. We bought a home. He's working for a club in the area and a teacher, and I've been with NCSA now. So just life takes you in different directions, as you know, Pat, but it's been pretty cool just to always stay around sports and always being giving back to what gave me so much as a young kid.
I love that. I love how all those things kind of just aligned. I talk about like when dreams merge together, like it happens organically, but it also takes some force. It takes some effort. It takes some desire to do what you want to do. And I think anytime, like I said, I have a D1 athlete, someone that comes on with a family, running around, doing all this stuff. It's like kudos because you make it look easy a lot of the time, man.
Well, I appreciate that, Pat. Yeah, we wanted to have the girls all within a quick period of time. We were blessed enough that we were able to do that. But we ultimately had three in 3 years. So that's
Yeah.
really what I thought. This is going to be tough to be a college coach and be a mom, you know, how I want to be a mom and raise our family in a community and stuff like that. So I always
Yeah.
feel blessed that I got the recruiting coach job at NCSA.
Well, you've definitely done a lot with that and you've parlayed it into a manager job. And like I said, a beautiful family and a beautiful life that you're creating every day, which I think is awesome. How about this though? So we are a mental health podcast, right? And I do want to pick your brain on one, why you thought you were a good fit to come on today, and
Yeah.
two, what mental health means for you.
Yeah, good question. I think mental health is really important, especially as a student athlete. I struggled with it in different areas, I'd say, throughout my tenure as an athlete, and certainly now even as an adult. I think it's something that you always have to put forward as important in your life. And if that's not the most important things, you got to realign values because you only have one of you. I was talking to my husband about it this morning. And like, man, we're so unique as individuals, you know, and like we bring so much to the earth that we have to offer. It's so cool. So yeah, I don't know why. I think I just like spiraled into something totally different, Pat. But I'd also say like one big thing for me coming out of being a student athlete and going into coaching for mental health wise, I struggled with the transition being a student athlete and not having that life anymore. I think as a
Yeah.
student athlete, like you're constantly have to act a certain way, have to be a certain way, have to live a certain place, have to, you know, like keep my grades up because I have to be on the field. Like everyone was always telling me what I had to do. When I got out of playing at Central Michigan University, I was a little bit like, how do I make decisions for myself? You know, how
Right.
do I find out who I am without soccer? Like those things were really, really hard for me. One thing that I started to do when I was a college coach, and I don't know about you, Pat, but like
Mhm.
I kind of steered away a little bit from being myself and being authentic because I felt like being a young coach, I had to be someone I wasn't. I was 24 years old working with like 22-year-olds. So
Very close.
in
I
the
do the same thing.
NAIA, you can get
Yeah.
like 25-year-olds every once in a while.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
long story short, the way that I kind of handled that position, I look back on it and I'm like, I just wasn't myself. Like I was trying to be this person to create separation between me and the players. And so I was like really strict and kind of mean and like on a high and mighty, you know, because I wanted to create that separation.
Right.
And really like I
Right.
just be yourself, you know, like allow yourself to connect with kids, be true to who you are, stay authentic, you know, to your values. Like I would have probably done it differently looking back on it. But as I grew older and I had that kind of natural difference in age and
Hmm.
what was important in my life and stuff like that, like I got to be myself with coaching and I just loved it so much more. Like I just
No.
loved the relationships I could create. I love the mentorship piece of it, like everything about it. So I think like with mental health, you just have to stay true to yourself as well. Don't try to be someone you're not.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I have to unlayer that because I think from a player perspective, like a lot of players go in, they play college for 4 years, 5 years, whatever, and all of a sudden it just stops.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden, all the structure that made you quote unquote you
Yeah.
is gone now. And
Yeah.
you have to find yourself going, okay, I quote unquote need a new identity. I need to get
Yeah.
thrust in the real world. And who do I have with me? And where is
Yeah.
everyone? Everyone seems to be in 90 different spots, and you're
Yeah.
trying to be yourself. So I
Yeah.
want to touch on that as the first thing. Second thing on the coaching side, yeah, I went through that. I was a college coach at 22. I was a college player
Same.
at 22.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I was coaching guys that I recruited in the
Yeah.
Rockford area, and I had players that were older than me.
Yeah.
So it goes back to this, though, and I talk about it now with my facility. We talked about this a little bit in the prelude.
Yeah.
You have to discipline one and love twice as hard because, like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you don't know what these
Yeah.
kids are going through, but we also set a standard and expectation where,
Yeah.
like, if I'm not getting that standard expectation, you need to over communicate. We have to
Yeah.
talk about what's going on. So I think for players and coaches, and there's a lot that listen to this podcast, take a step back and understand, okay, not everybody is going through the same stuff and
Yeah.
not everyone is seeing it in the same lens that you are, for sure.
And you have such a powerful opportunity. You know, as a 24
Yes.
coach, you're going to be able to connect
Yes.
with kids on a whole different level that me at 39, I can't do at this point. You know, I can, but it's hard
Yes.
for me.
It's
Like,
different.
I
It's
don't
different.
know the language. I don't know what's cool right now, you know? So, but the just
Yeah.
I handled it was so like, you know how I am, Pat. I'm pretty fun. I'm pretty easygoing.
You
I'm
are.
love
You
to
are.
connect with people. I get energy from that. But
Mhm.
just who I was in that first year or two, like wasn't like that.
All
And so,
right. Look, I got to put you on the spot.
yeah,
So if you could go back to college coaching
yeah.
at that age, at that time, with that roster, say they're listening to the podcast right now, what would you say to them? What would you change?
Oh my gosh. Well in the grand scheme of things, Pat, I don't think I would change. I don't I just think you do things for a reason in
I
life.
love that answer.
You know
Yeah,
what I
go
mean?
ahead.
And
I
so
love
like
that
I
answer.
think the reason I did what I did was because I had to in that time. I was learning how to grow as a human, like, and I'd hope everyone would get grace like we all do. Um,
Yes.
but I probably would just allow them to communicate with me more. You know, there was times
Yeah.
that a student athlete would come up to me and like probably Pat, you were the same way in the Rockford area. You know, they want to talk about their boyfriend, for instance, and something common that they're going through, or their girlfriend, or whatever it is in that moment that's just really important to them. My head would always go to jumping to the craziest situation. I'm going to be put in
Hmm.
a situation where they're going to do this, and I'm going
Hmm.
to be cornered. I'm not going to know what to do with this information. really, they just want to talk about their night out, having fun with their friends.
Right.
So I'd allow
Right.
myself to step back. I'd give myself a moment to just know what the reason is, why they're trying to connect with me. And like in that moment, they needed me, like for that reason
Mhm.
to talk with me. And I think that's the most important thing in the grand scheme of things.
I think that's beautiful. One, that you wouldn't change anything, because I ask that question all the time. And a lot
Yeah.
of people, I'd say 90% say they wouldn't change anything. And two, like
Yeah.
going forward with my athletes, I was the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could name 1,000 players, right? But like I would say, yeah, Johnny, that's fine.
Yeah.
But what if they bunt first and third in the seventh, and we have to, and it's like looking back, they needed someone to talk to that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I think the most powerful thing in sports is having someone that believes in you and that you trust. Because
Yeah.
in this day and age, it's not that common anymore.
I know.
Yes, we are a mental health podcast, but I've had 4 different co-hosts on this pod and with this nonprofit, and we talk about that belief factor and that coach that believes in you. Let's pivot. Talk about a coach that believed in you during your process.
Yeah. So I always say like my favorite coach growing up, and actually when I met my husband, he knew this coach, and the coach called and said, Scott, if you call Ann and say, who's your favorite coach of all time? I guarantee you she'll say Ralph Torrey.
Here we go.
I said Ralph Torrey. So
shout him out.
but
Shout him
I
out.
would, but I would say it was a club coach for me, Pat. And actually it was a really important time, I think, just for me as a teenager. I was like 15, 16 years old. I was actually on a B team at the time for my club team. And I was a little bit undersized and not super fit. I didn't really take soccer really seriously, but I had this club coach that said, come on over to my club. You can be our number one goalkeeper. You're going to be our person.
Nice.
Just, I could tell, believed in me, felt me a part of his plan, kind of like what we tell student athletes to look for with college coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So I switched over clubs, and ultimately he came before practice with me like every week, Pat, and just trained me. Just because he cared and wanted to see my development and stuff like that. And that year or two that I had with him, I really grew. I grew as a student athlete. I grew physically as well. So as a goalkeeper,
that helps.
Skills.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I really grew confidence because I could tell in his eyes I was his person, and like who he trusted with his team. He trusted with it was called Vardar, was the club team.
Yeah.
And really because of me, I was going to elevate this team with him. And I just love that. And I grew so much. So I would say that coach really sticks out for me, Pat.
Man, that's awesome. Like I said, I feel like everybody has that one coach. I talk about Steve Peterson pretty much every other episode. He was my hitting coach, and David, my co-host, he was actually his hitting coach too. And it wasn't because he was a great baseball mind. He was a great coach.
Yeah.
He was a father figure to me.
Yeah.
He was someone that, like Ralph, right? Like you said, Ralph was his first name.
Yeah, Ralph. Yeah.
It's someone like that just took on this role when he didn't have to.
Yeah.
He wanted to. He believed in who you wanted to be. And look, he's got to be so damn proud of who you are now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we still stay in contact. We invited him to our wedding.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, and so I think just everything combined when I was 16 years old made a huge difference for me. But ultimately, Pat, I would say that I don't know about you and your recruiting journey, but I was like a lot of our student athletes at NCSA. I struggled to get a lot of attention from coaches. I was actually undersized as a goalkeeper until, again, about 16, 17 years old, where it was like I just elevated.
Shot up. Yeah.
Kind of a little bit later in the game.
Yeah. And that can weigh on you. That can weigh on you. I've been 5'9" since the 8th grade. I've been I was actually 5'9" and a quarter. For everyone that's known me as 5'9", I was 5'9" and a quarter last doctor's visit. So I'm growing. The point I'm trying to make is like, if you're undersized, if your grades aren't where you want them to be, if your tests aren't where you want them to be, if you're in a tough area of the country, there's a school for you. There's an opportunity. People that work 9 to 5, there's opportunities to keep growing. Like just once again, the mantra, keep on going, keep on moving forward.
I just remember I went to Central Michigan around that same time, and I just felt like I was a part of their plan. Like I felt the love. And I always tell student athletes, like, I don't know what it looks like, but I know what it feels like. And you want that feeling.
Yes. Yes. No one's ever been wanted on accident or like been surprised by it. Like, when you're wanted in any situation in recruiting or in life in general, like, I don't know. I find a lot of love and a lot of balance and a lot of blessings in those people that really believe in you and see that you can help each other. I think that's big. Well, here's what I'll say. I guess on that same train of thought, Talk about someone outside of your coach that inspires you. I know you've brought your husband up 3 different times already, so I'll give you the floor there if you want to talk about him for a little bit, because everything I've heard about him is a fantastic human being.
Oh gosh, yes. I would say my husband inspires me. He balances me out really well, Pat. And I think that's one of the things that with relationships can be positive. I'm
Yeah.
obviously very hyper. I talk a lot. I'm very active. I'm up at 5 a.m. having coffee and working. And he balances me out really well. He's always like, Ann, just take a second. Take a
Yes.
second, breathe. Things that I always think are, the end of the world are such a big deal. He's always like, that's okay. It's going to be okay. We'll wake up tomorrow, we're going to see a new light. We're going to be positive. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah,
And I
that's what
need
love
that.
that's what
I
love
need that
is. That's
because
what
it
love
doesn't always
is.
feel like that inside my heart and my brain, So I appreciate that. But I'd also, Pat, I'd say my mom. My mom's a big inspiration for me. Not athletically. I actually grew up with parents that were in the medical field, so they weren't
Oh,
athletes.
got it.
I have 3 older brothers that aren't athletes either. So all of a sudden
Wow.
I came through and I was like, I love softball and soccer and basketball. My parents were like, what is this? We finally got our girl. And I'm into all
How
this.
do we get to this point? Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. But my mom's such a hard worker. She's a hard worker with a lot of things. She's still a professor at UCF here at Central Florida. And she
Yeah.
at an age that she doesn't need to be a professor, but she just loves working and she loves learning and she loves giving back again to what gave her so much. So she's a nursing professor, but she's also really devout with her faith, Pat. She wakes up every morning, she prays, she does a devotional, she exercises, and she just starts her day in such a positive light every single day. It's pretty incredible. But that's someone that I emulate in life as well.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the podcast, and I don't shy away from shouting out my mom. Um, I think my mom, single mom, 4 kids, put a cape on every day and
Yeah,
did it without any, I don't know, instant gratification or need for the glory. She just did
yeah,
it. And I think anytime you have a hardworking mom that comes to work, quote unquote, does
yeah,
her thing from 5 a.m. to probably 9, 10 p.m. every day and busts her butt. I got a lot
yeah.
of love for moms. And I know Dave does, and of course Luke and past guests and hosts that we've had.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think that's
Keeps
awesome.
things in
Family first.
perspective too, Pat, when you say something's hard and then like I'm looking at her and I'm like, Mom, I'm tired, Da, da,
Oh,
like,
oh my God. I
perspective here.
No doubt. I think my work ethic, and I know it does for you too, working up at 5 a.m. and getting on the computer
Oh
and
yeah.
jumping on, 4 or 5 cups of coffee, whatever it takes. Like, I think seeing my mom packing lunches while on the phone with the doctor, while running to like a
Yeah.
superhero. And
Yeah.
I say it on my calls all the time. If you have a mom like that, please call her today, or dad, whoever it may be, grandpa, grandma, guardian, and just tell them thank you, that you love
Yeah.
them, because
Yeah.
that call is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
That call is
I
not
agree.
guaranteed.
I'm with you, Pat, for sure.
I love that. Well, I'm glad you shouted out your mom, and I can just tell you started smiling. I was like, wow, this is going to be really good. So I appreciate
Oh,
that.
gotta give the mom a shout, Pat. You know that.
I love that. Well, here's this. And you kind of, I don't know, I didn't bury the lead here, but you are very bubbly. You are very energetic. You are a team first person. It comes off first 23 minutes and everything that you do. But there had to have been some times where like things got tough and like things were not like this. Talk about your keep going moment, something that should have broke you down, should have took down the normal person, but you got through.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I'm going to use it from a student athlete perspective. When I got to Central Michigan, I mentioned that I actually chose it for my coach. He was my Olympic development coach at the time and said, come to Central. I said, sounds great. I was there. Well, I actually got to play my freshman year, Pat, which was really fun and unique just for a freshman. And being a goalkeeper, there's only one of you. So I was finding some success on the field, and I got a website sent to me that my coach actually was going to a different school. He was on a different school's website, Pat. He didn't even tell us. It was like not the best moment, but it was hard. It was hard to choose a school for someone, that one person, to find so much success your freshman year. I started to think about, do I want to continue being here? Do I want to continue playing soccer? Should I transfer? That was probably the hardest point, I would say, especially from the student athlete standpoint. But ultimately, I'll tell you what happened is Central Michigan hired a coach, and he was fine for 3 years. I got a great degree out of it, adapted, grew as a person. So was that coach the best fit for me? Probably not for 3 years, but I figured it out. So it was all right.
Yeah, my question B to that would be, this is like I said earlier, an instant gratification culture. This is somewhere where
Right.
like, if
Well,
you're
now it would be
playing,
over.
oh
Now it
my
would be in
goodness,
the transfer portal,
you
gone.
know where I'm going with
Like,
this.
I know,
And
I think about that all the time. And I'm like, man, that was hard. That was really, really hard. But I don't even remember thinking about transferring. Like, I remember thinking about
yeah,
giving up soccer and being so sad and devastated, but the transfer portal wasn't a thing. And now I'm like, I almost guarantee it'd be so easy and there'd be so many people pushing me toward that. Good or bad thing, it's just different these days.
yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think a lot of the times it's, let's just quit and find something else.
Yeah.
I find it all the time at my facility now, and obviously in the recruiting world where things get tough, people leave, people
Yeah.
go somewhere else. Yes, there are one-off situations where that makes sense. When your mental health is in question and like this no longer fills your cup anymore, fine.
Yeah.
But there's situations every day where like, if you don't get through that adversity, if you don't get through the hard times, look at your career now.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You,
know. I
you're
know.
still working with athletes and former athletes and coaches every single day because you stuck to it.
Yeah, I know.
And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. Go ahead.
We always talk about that too, just like our little decisions in life, like if I would have given up in that moment and quit soccer, I wouldn't have met Scott probably, who I met through soccer. I wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
had my 3 daughters and created this career and passion for a game. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. I always talk about with Ashton too. Obviously, my fiance, and people on this pod get sick of me talking about how great she is. And I
No, we
don't,
don't have that.
well, thank you. I don't meet Ashton without going to Rock Valley and taking that chance and staying in Rockford. When I graduated from Rockford University, I was gone. Like I was in Rockford for 5 years. I was gone, but coming back and getting the chance to work with athletes and being in the area, you connect through a friend of a friend, and all of a sudden here we are. And
Yeah.
guess what? I'm on my porch right now in the Rockford suburbs. I've never left. And that's what life is though. And you mentioned it
Yeah.
earlier, I'm a man of faith myself, but I know your faith journey has been incredible. Talk about your faith and what that means to you kind of as you go through your day to day.
Yeah, good question. Well, it's kind of gone in ebbs and flows, Pat. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
certainly times in my life where I was more devoted and faithful and disciplined with it. Not that I, even in the times that I'm not, I would say I'm still faithful. But you know
Mhm.
how it is, like being structured with it and things like that. So
Yeah.
as a student athlete, I would say that you're given a lot of resources. You have to take advantage of it. Like we had um, um, athletes in action at Central Michigan. We had
Right.
studies for student athletes. Like there was so many opportunities. And again, this driven life that I had to show up for those things, which again, right or wrong, it did create some structure in my life that I had to show up. When I left
Yes.
Central Michigan, again, kind of confusing. Where am I going? What am I doing? Where's the structure that everyone told me what to do, when to do it? I kind of struggled with that. I met Scott. We got back into our faith. We were in church all the time. But I'll also say, Pat, it changes with different places we lived. When we're in Orlando, here in Orlando, I find it a little bit harder to get to church every Sunday. The girls are getting busy with sports. When we lived
Right.
in Goshen, Indiana, that was like everyone went to church on Sunday morning. I don't
Exactly.
know if you felt
Exactly.
that living different places,
Hmm.
but it's
Hmm.
differences between small towns and big cities too.
Yes. I
So
agree. What I would say in a couple of things. One, your faith is always under construction. The cool thing about that is like you can build and you can tear down when you need to. And God will always welcome you back, which I think is the most
yeah,
beautiful thing. I was someone that completely let go for a couple of years and just started doing stuff. I'm better. I can do it myself.
yes.
Oh, I crashed and burned.
Yeah.
Coming
The thing
back.
I'll say though, Pet, too, with it, just to say as well, is like always keep yourself around though people that are good
Amen.
about their faith and that are going to bring you back in. Because I mentioned like my mom, Scott, I have so many friends. I have you. Pat wrote me, this was like 6 months ago. I just was kind of in one of my slumps, and he's like, show up on Friday. We have our Bible study. It's like you got to have people like that around, like accountability buddies too with your faith. So I
Oh,
that
if we're gonna shout that out, I have a story that I have to share with our listeners that I always laugh about. Like I don't even know if you know this, but I'll get vulnerable. It's our podcast, right? About 2 years ago, before my boss at the time, Lana, left, like I was going through a lot of panic attacks. I was going through a lot of anxiety, and hopefully I hit it pretty well during that time. But when I was kind of thrusted in that manager role, I really felt like I was never doing the right stuff. I felt like I was always wrong. I was always running. I was jumping into manager meetings trying
I
to be like this
remember that.
fake
Yeah.
manager. You said something one time that always stuck with me. We were in a manager meeting and you said, well, this is really awesome, but when is Pat going to be a manager? And I needed that day. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that probably changed my life because ever since that day, I've been a top performer. And it goes back to, I'm crying again. It always goes back to just having someone believe in you. And you that day when you started not showing up to Bible study, I felt the need to tell you that we miss you and we love
Yeah.
you. And we know that you're a huge part of what we're looking to do, not only in Bible study, but with NCSA as a
Yeah.
whole. So long-winded answer, but you did the same thing for me. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, Pat. I
Yeah.
still believe that.
I love you for that. And I just love who you are. And I think it's clear as day that you come on here, you spend a Sunday morning with us in the podcast. And I know a lot of athletes and coaches are going to get a bunch out of this, but I can't let you go without asking some questions. So if you have some time, I'm going to rapid fire some questions. Okay.
All right. I got it.
First thing, favorite athlete of all time, go.
Mia Hamm.
Mia Hamm, no doubt. Not even a doubt.
No doubt. Are you kidding me? I'm a 99er. That
Okay.
99 World Cup changed my life.
Wow. Okay. So just please, soccer is like, it's not my cup of tea in the knowledge. I love soccer. I played as a kid. My co-host was a goalkeeper as well at Maryville in Tennessee.
Oh.
So, which is awesome. I was hoping Luke would still be here when we scheduled all this. Long story short. Okay, so Mia Hamm was on that championship team with the girl that scored the game-winning goal.
Brandy Chastain.
Brandy Chastain. Wow. Okay, so that's the famous Sports Illustrated cover, correct?
Yeah, yes. Brandy Chastain when she sports bra won the World Cup against
iconic.
110,000 people at the Rose Bowl. It was awesome.
That's iconic. So Mia Hamm is still married to Nomar Garcia-Parra.
I was just gonna say she's married to a baseball player.
Nomar played for the Cubs. Right, Pat? Nomar played for the Cubs. He was a shortstop. I was a big fan. Yes. Okay. We're good there. We're good. Okay. All right. Favorite thing to do with the family when you're not working and running around crazy?
Go to sporting games.
Yeah. Got it.
The Orlando City games or Magic games or but also we travel as well. So every summer we try to take the girls and we try to travel somewhere. So we did Australia a couple summers ago. We did Sweden last summer. This summer we're going to try to go somewhere. So we really like to travel. We try to prioritize that.
I noticed that. You know that your kiddos have that same smile you have when they're on these trips. Because I look on Facebook and I look when you post, I'm like, these kids are having the time of their darn lives out there.
Thanks, Pat. I hope so. It's definitely, like I always say, and this is important for a mental health podcast too, is I post the good stuff. We come back from our trips or, we're on our Christmas break or whatever it is. Like I always post the happy. There's plenty of behind the scenes where there's meltdowns.
Yeah, that's part of life though. That's the ups and downs. And that's what makes the beautiful trips and like the time with your husband and the family so beautiful, you know?
And I don't know, like my bio on I think it's my Instagram, it says, define yourself by what you love. I always have to show off the happy because there's enough negative in the world. The more that you can spread happiness, the better off we are.
I'm so happy you said that. Thank you for saying that. Third and final question for you, because I want to be a man of my word. We're over 30.
Okay.
You got an athlete struggling because unfortunately I get direct messages and David does all the time from athletes, from coaches that are going through this. What would you tell them?
And I've been in very bad spots in my life too. And I'd say the same thing that I tell myself is just wake up the next morning and put one foot in front of the other. It really sounds taboo or whatever, you know what I mean? But that's the truth. You wake up every morning and you put one foot in front of the other. And then all of a sudden, if you keep doing that and surrounding yourself with positive, helpful people, it gets better. But it doesn't, you have to wake up in the morning, you have to put one foot in front of the other and keep going. I truly believe that.
Yeah. And AG, it's like, it's easy. Cause like, honestly, I look at you and I've obviously met you in person. You're that person. Like you are the person that you are that light for people, but I know there's tough times and you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think that's amazing. And I'm proud of you for doing so.
Thanks, Pat. You too.
Well, I appreciate that. Last but not least, I can't let you leave the podcast with one without saying thank you. I really appreciate you being here. It's been a blessing. It's been an honor to have someone like yourself on this podcast.
Thanks, Pat.
Two, how can I help you? Like with things that you're doing, how can this podcast, how can we help with our network to help you moving forward?
That just as I just said, like I believe like you keep showing up, you keep being, you know, one foot in front of the other, you keep being a positive force in the world. Like if you do that stuff every day, you're better off. And like you're doing that with what you're doing. Those are doing that with by listening in, you know, like everything about this, you're already giving back and helping.
Well,
So
well, thank you. And then we plan
answer
on
the
it.
question like super directly, but
No,
here.
that's perfect. We try to, and I obviously have a lot of passion for this, and it's something that I didn't have any prior schooling in, and just learning. And everybody has a story, and I'm glad we got to learn yours today.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat.
Perfect. Well, love you. Appreciate you, AG, and
Love
you
you
have a
too.
great rest of your Sunday. And everybody, listen, keep on going.
All right. Keep on going. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.